Oseo.
Oseo.
That's a Cherokee greeting, and that's pretty special today because I'm going to say something about Cherokee. And también, buenos tardes.
Buenos tardes.
Because I'm kind of continuing from last week. I'm kind of keeping this theme of Mexico, my connection, my relation, everything that I like about Mexico. Mexico is a lot bigger than, the national boundary. All the Southwest is Mexico. When I did my graduate performance and I said something like that, the professor said, well, then we'd all be Mexican citizens. And fortunately, another student says, well, what's wrong with that? Well, of course, I wouldn't want to give up my citizenship here and so forth. But it says Mexico, so I'm kind of keeping the same sense, that I did last week, that I might title this, the eyes, the faces, and the spirits of Mexico. And I've kept part of my display from last week, so you kind of just look around here, you see all these masks that I had here. So they are masks, and in today's theme they are also faces and eyes and spirits here, and I've added a few. But I'll introduce my centerpiece here first, my painting. And this is going to be, well, it's the constellation of the Octavio Paz poem I'm going to read today. But this painting I had named it Iva'a. A little explanation. That word comes from the Cahuilla people who have lived out here in the desert for several thousands of years. The language is called Uto-Aztecan. And of course you can see if you have Hutu and you have Aztec, that it means it's a language related to the Aztecs. Basically, all the languages of the Southwest and into Northwest Mexico are of the same language family, Uto-Aztecan. Especially North and Northwest Mexico is still of this language. The origin of the people we've come to call Aztecs that had settled in Mexico City seem to have originated somewhere in the northwest of Mexico, close to the Pacific coast. So that gives a little bit. Iva'a is an interesting word. In short, say it's like the life force. It's very, very extensive in its meaning, its usage, basically to say there isn't anything that doesn't have Iva'a in it. And it also can be dangerous. It can also be unpredictable. It has all kinds of things going for it. I would also call it a transposon. That's a word meaning it has a quality that allows it to enter into the matrix of anything else. So to say that everything in the world has Iva'a in it would seem to include that also. It also goes for things, animals, or people who have an unusual quality of clairvoyance, that kind of thing. So that's why I've named my painting that, and I'll say more when I introduce the poem there. And while we're still talking about Mexico, can we look at this painting over here of mine? You've heard from me a few times, I'm sure, that I attended and was part of the Yaqui community in Arizona, Guadalupe, and ceremonies for years and years. And that's where this painting comes from. In one part of the ceremony, the people, the ceremonialists, they're called, the Pharisees, the Chapiekas, they are all the Hasidim. They make a kind of parallel lines of marching that are going opposite ways. And they all carry wooden swords. And as they pass each other, they are hitting the other guy's sword that way. So it really sounds like, a lot of antlers knocking on wood. And my experience, in that, with it, is what inspired me to make this painting that I call Via Las Cruces here. And somehow I like this painting and the theme that I'm talking about today, especially the face here. And another thing that I'm bringing into it here, we can go down here and look at this. This is a picture of a painting, and who is featured in the painting are Iroquois, and they're wearing masks. So they are the False Face Society. And if you can travel the camera way over there. Now this is my false face mask. So to say something about that, best is you kind of make it simple. I was ceremonially initiated into what is known as the False Face Society, or the vision masks, like that. And it is Iroquois, but my education and mentor and everybody in that's all in Cherokee. And for this initiation, the mask was an inheritance, and it was just plain, it was just a mask. So part of this is that I had to go to the slaughterhouse and get the hair, which was the tail of a horse, in order to bring it back and prepare it, scrape it and dry it and do all those kind of things in order to dress the mask. So that's part of the initiation. Plus, on the back it has tobacco ties on it. Anyway, I'm not giving the details for the initiation other than to say that gave me a footing as a healer. In other words, the Iroquois False Face Society is a healing society. And I'm not sure if the camera, if you can, if it's bright enough to pick up this picture. This is on the cover of Jerome Rothenberg's book, Shaking the Pumpkin. It's kind of a dark photo, but it is a photo of some false face society members posing for this picture. To give you an idea, there are different kinds of masks. Now these masks are not just simply a mask, but they are spiritual beings. And these spiritual beings, definitely have spiritual communication. And that's why I have mine showing for this theme, because one way, at least for the transmission, is that the eyes of the mask, see the eyes of this mask are copper eyes, and the spiritual being, put it that way, does appear with those eyes to whatever relate dreams, visions, or knowledge. And alongside of it is the turtle shell rattle that accompanies, the false face. So that's why I have that there. So when you can come back to the picture that I have, just to give it a colorful idea of how these people might appear. And since we are looking there, we'll go right down in front of it. This is a Mexican flute with a snake on it. That's kind of has a little bit in the poem I'll read, And then we can kind of go down here to this piece. Now, what you're looking at is this is a natural form of lava, and I found it, I think on the Arizona side of the desert that's out here. And I really did feel I was drawn to it. Every once in a while I get these little senses or something that draws me, and that I went out there and I picked this up, and if it comes out in the camera, it's quite a face. It's quite heavy, big chunk of lava from out here in the desert. And of course, when we come over here, we're seeing an owl who does, especially owls are always known for their eyes, so their eyes come out. And what I have alongside of it, the stone here, it has a face. This is a, you know, an ancient Mexican face for a sunstone. That's why I have it here. And because the poems I'm going to do is from Octavio Paz's Sunstone. So I think I've said everything there, but here the painting, you look at the painting again, all that this painting encompasses is, I'm having it here for the poem I'm about to read. It seems to be very adequate, especially the eyes in this painting. Really, you know, feel very good about this painting and how it came about. And it is very good for the constellation. I'm trying to say constellating the poem I'm going to read. I began with Octavio Paz, you know, there in somewhere in the 60s when I started my Mexican studies. And the main book that I started with was The Labyrinth of Solitude. And even as after I finished with my degree, I continued to present using my slides and things from Mexico into schools and colleges in Arizona and California and so forth. And I'm trying to say that because at the same time, this was 1957, the publishment of his book, Labyrinth and Solitude. It also became his international poetry career. And the poem I'm about to read from is called Sunstone. And it's, you know, a very long, they call it a circular poem. And it was his, it seems like his first major work as a poem. And what I've done is that I've selected two verses, you know, from a long poem called Sunstone, and that's why I have a little sunstone there for that. So I got all the introduction in, you know, for this. So now I'm going to read this poem from Octavio Paz's Sunstone. You can also look at me too. Writing of fire on a slice of jade, crack in the stone, queen of snakes, column of mist, spring from a rock, goddess of valleys under the sea, guardian of mermaids, lady of the flute and lightning flashes, terrace of jasmine and a rose branch, writings of the sea on basalt rock, snake shapes of wind in desert sand, the sun's last will, or the pomegranate seeds. Face of flames, face wrought by nightly years and circular days that open out on the same wall. The moment is aflame, and all the faces in the flames are a single face. All of the names, a single name. All of the faces, only one face. All the centuries, one moment. And through all of the centuries, a single moment. And through all of the centuries, the way to the future clouds over in a pair of eyes. Gracias.